Good evening, dear listeners. Welcome back into another episode here on Confessions Corner. Please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe, and also do not forget to comment and like. Let us get into our first story. I never thought I would be the kind of man to make a deal with the devil, but when hunger gnaws at your stomach, when your debts pile up like tombstones, and when you watch your own child cry herself to sleep because there's nothing to eat, you realize desperation will make a man to do the unthinkable. My name is Anonymous, and this is my confession. It started with a friend. My friend had always been a quiet man. I'll call him Sipho, but one day he reappeared in my life, driving a brand new BMW, wearing expensive clothes and throwing money around like it was nothing. Just 6 months before, we had both been broke, struggling to survive. I asked him, Sipho, what's your secret? At first, he dodged my question, but after I pressed him, he finally gave in. There is a way to get rich, he said, lowering his voice, but it comes with a price. I laughed. What price? Hard work. He didn't smile. He just stared at me. No, he said, something much worse. He told me about them, a secret brotherhood, an occultic group of powerful men who had tapped into forces beyond this world. They promised wealth, success, and power, but in return, they demanded sacrifices. I should have walked away, but I didn't. I was tired of struggling. I was tired of watching my wife, Zanele, suffer. I was tired of feeling small. So when Sipho told me they were looking for new members, I agreed. The night of my initiation was the night I stopped being a man and became something else. They took me to a house in the countryside deep in Mpumalanga, where the land stretched for miles with nothing but the sound of the wind whispering through the trees. Inside they were men dressed in black robes, their faces hidden. In the center of the room stood a coffin, its lid slightly open. I wanted to run, but Sipho grabbed my arm. It's too late now. The leader stepped forward. His voice was calm, but there was something cold in it, something inhuman. You seek wealth? Yes, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Then you must prove your loyalty. The coffin lid slid open completely. Inside was a man, still alive, his mouth gagged, his eyes filled with terror. My stomach twisted. Who is he? The leader smiled. A sacrifice. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But then they handed me a knife and thought of my daughter sleeping hungry. I thought of my debts. I thought of Zanele crying in the dark because we had no money for rent, and I did it. When it was over, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, but the next morning, my bank account had 500,000 in it. For months, I lived in luxury, new cars, new clothes, new house. No one asked questions. People just assumed I had found a good business deal. But then came the final test. One night we were summoned to a remote location. This time there were 5 of us. The leader stood before us, his eyes burning with something dark. The time has come for you to prove your true loyalty, he said. I felt the air grow heavy, my stomach twisting with fear. Then they brought out the cages. Inside them, they were our own relatives, our own blood. My heart stopped. My brother Temba sat in one of those cages, his face pale with fear. No, I whispered, not this. But the leader smiled. You knew this was coming. You knew. I turned to Sipho, hoping he would stop his madness, but he only lowered his head. The instructions were simple. We were to dig the graves ourselves. The ground was hard, the soil dry. My hands hands bled from the shovel, but I kept digging. Then they forced us to lower our loved ones into the pits alive. I couldn't breathe. Themba was screaming my name, begging me, his hands clutching the edge of the grave. Please, I'm your brother. You can't do this. Tears blurred my vision. My hands shook. My body trembled, but they were watching. And I knew if I didn't do it, they would kill me instead. So I lifted the first handful of dirty and I buried my brother alive. The haunting, I thought the nightmares would go away. I thought money would make the voices stop, but I was wrong. Every night I hear Themba screams. I hear his muffled cries beneath the soil. I see his hands reaching for me in the dark, his voice whispering in the wind. Why did you do this to me, my brother? I tried to drown the guilt in alcohol. I tried to forget, but some things can't be forgotten. And then the accident started happening. Sipho was the first to die. They found him in his mansion, his body twisted, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. Then the others followed, one by one. All the men from that night, some were found dead in their beds, some disappeared without a trace. Now I'm the only one left, and I know they are coming for me next. I don't know how much time I have. I feel something watching me, something lurking in the shadow. The wind whispers my name at night. The lights flicker even when there's no wind. The money is cursed. If I could take it all back, I would, but it's too late. I don't sleep anymore, and I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see Themba clawing at the dirt, his muffled screams echoing in my skull. I see his face twisted in agony, his eyes pleading with me. And when I wake up, he is there, not just in my dreams, not just in my mind. He is here. And the shadows of everything in the house moves. It started with small things. The lights in my mansion would flicker at night, no matter how many electricians I hired. The mirrors would fog up with no explanation, and whenever I wiped them, I would see something behind me. Just for a second, a shadow, a face, him. Then the whispers began. At first I thought it was the wind, but the voices followed me everywhere, even in places where the air was still. The first time I heard it, nearly crashed my car. The second time I was in my bedroom and the voice came from under my bed. I tried to ignore it. I tried to drown it out with loud music, with alcohol, with women, but you cannot escape the dead. One night I came home late, stumbling through the hallways of my empty mansion. I poured myself a drink, trying to steady my nerves, when I heard something behind me, footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the hallway. I turned around, expecting to see a thief, maybe a servant I had forgotten about, but the corridor was empty. And yet the footsteps continued closer. I took a shaky breath, my body frozen, my hands clenched the glass so tightly it shattered, cutting my palm. Blood dripped onto the marble floor, but I didn't move, because now I could hear something else breathing, ragged hollow right behind me. I spun around, and there he was. But he was not my brother anymore. His skin was grey, stretched tightly over his bones. His lips were torn and cracked, his fingernails jagged and broken from scratching at his own grave. His eyes, God, his eyes, They were nothing but empty sockets, bleeding black tears down his cheeks, and yet he saw me and he knew me. A guttural whizzing sound came from his throat, and then he smiled. "Did you think I would stay buried?" I screamed. I don't remember much after that. I woke up the next morning in my bedroom, the sheets soaked in sweat. My hands were still bleeding from the shattered glass. I told myself it was a nightmare, a hallucination, the guilt playing tricks on my mind. But then I saw the footprints, muddy, rotten footprints leading from my door to my bed. The curse spread. I tried to flee. I packed my bags, withdrew as much money as I could, and booked a flight to Cape Town. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could outrun whatever was haunting me. But when I arrived at my hotel, the receptionist gave me a key with a strange look. "You already checked in," she said. My blood ran cold. "No, I didn't." She hesitated, then showed me the logbook, and there it was, in black inky, written my name, anonymous, checked in 3 o'clock a.m. I hadn't been there at 3 a.m. So who had signed my name? I ran up to my room, my heart hammering in my chest. I threw open the door and stopped. The room smelled of damp soil, and curtains fluttered though the windows were shut. And on the bed, neatly placed on the pillow, was a single object, a handful of dirt. I staggered back, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Then I saw the mirror. Words were scrawled across the glass, written in blooded finger streaks. "You can't run, anonymous." I turned and bolted out of the room. After that, I tried everything: traditional healers, priests, even a witch doctor deep in Limpopo. They all say the same thing. Temba wants justice. The dead cannot rest. They have been wronged. You must confess or face the wrath. Confess to who? The police? The world? How do you confess to burying your own brother alive? But now I realize I don't have a choice, because last night I heard his voice again, not in my dreams, not in the wind, right outside my door. "Anonymous, it's time." I haven't opened the door. I don't want to, but I can hear him. His fingernails scratching against the wood, scraping, digging. The way he dug when I buried him alive. I know what he wants. He wants me to suffer the same fate. I can already feel it. The ground beneath me growing softer, the walls closing in, the air growing thin. I can feel the soil pressing against my skin, feeling my mouth choking me. Even as I write this, I know I am already in my grave. I don't know if anyone will ever read this confession, but if you do, remember this world has a price and the dead always collect. Your strange things do happen. So guys, please, after listening to these confessions, do comment, like, and subscribe.